So, to start, you love it in pink? Me too, it's my color, right? Now, when you're wood burning, this is my wood burner, and we'll go through it in a sec. I usually wood burn here because I have my door open directly in front of me. Now, when I am wood burning a lot of mesh, I do wear my, oh shoot, I should have brought it out. I just put it away. I do use my HEPA filtered mask because burning the mesh, there's plastic in it. And with plastic, there is a trace of the materials that latex are made out of, and I'm allergic to latex. So if I'm doing a whole bunch of mesh, I normally wear a long sleeve shirt because wood burning mesh makes my skin itchy. And I also wear a HEPA filtered respirator that I got from Amazon. It's got the cartridges, and that'll just filter out any of the microparticles that are in the air. But for this demonstration, but I can't talk when I have my mask on. So for this demonstration, I'm not going to, but I have my French doors open and I have my windows open and we're good to go. Oh, is it not available? Make it like Lori's, Regina? Oh. Okay, so let's go over stuff. I usually do it sitting here at my craft table, and instead of having to always remove, now this is a brand new thing. I must go through at least 6 cutting mats a year. This is a new cutting mat. I don't want to ruin it. At least let it last a month. So I put a hand towel, a white hand towel, so that I can see the lines on the grid of my glass mat. So I have just a hand towel underneath my glass mat, and it's enough that it's not going to warp. Like the heat from my wood burner is not going to warp my cutting mat, okay? Now this is a tempered glass cutting mat. And you can get the link for this mat. It's under Lori's Favorite Tools up over on uniqueinthecreek.com. This exact cutting mat I got on Amazon. It's an awesome cutting mat. So if you do plan on doing wood burning or whatever, do yourself a favor and grab one of these. It's under $20. It already has all the marks on it and grids on it. It's tempered glass. I've dropped it many times. It still hasn't broke. I should say that with my fingers crossed. And it's 16 long and 12 wide, which is normally we're just wood burning 10 by 10 or 10.5 by 10.5. It's $40 now? Are you Canadian or American? Holy crap. I'm sure when I bought this, it was like literally under, I think it was like $18.99 when I bought it, or $17.99. Wow. Okay. US. Wow. Okay. They've seen the trend of people buying these, so they've jumped on that. So you can also use a glass cutting board from the dollar store and make your own lines on it. So as you can see on mine, hopefully you can see on mine, I've actually accentuated the 10-inch mark by a black Sharpie marker. All I did was do a black line down the back of my glass mat. And then this orange one is 10.5. Okay? You had them $15. I don't know. It's crazy. They see the trends and then they hike up the prices. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, I still would pay $40 for mine because I use it a lot. Anyways, like I said, I have accentuated the 10-inch mark and the 10.5. Not too many times I go past 10.5. Okay? And then, like I said, I do the marker on the back side, so when I'm heat sealing, I'm not, the marker is not going to get erased, okay? So that's the cutting board. Now you can use a cookie sheet, like a cookie tin, cookie, you know, the tin cookie sheets or cutter, or the cookie thingies. You know what they are. And if you have an old one, just, you know, take your ruler, If you're doing 10-inch, mark a 10-inch line, and then you can just pull out your mesh and measure it like that. $8.99 at Hobby Lobby. There you go. Go to Hobby Lobby. $8.99. Perfect. I did not know that. So I bought this a couple years ago. So obviously, you know, the market, you know, when they see it, people see a trend, the market, you know, lots of other people start making the same things. So when I got this, it pretty much was only on Amazon, I could see. Okay. Oh yes. Glass top from an old fridge. Absolutely. For sure. Anything that's not going to burn through. Okay. And I just err on the side of caution by putting a hand towel underneath. Okay. Just an old hand towel. Anyways. So, and what else I do is I take 2 of my clips, my metal clips that I use all the time, these 2 or even your pink ones, and I have them at the end of my cutting mat, okay? These are going to help hold my mesh down, so I have 2 hands free when I do my wood burning. All right, so we are going to, I also have a metal ruler. You can get this metal ruler. I just got it at the dollar store. So just in the, where the pens and rulers and everything, the stationery section of the dollar store, you can find a metal ruler. It's got like a cork on the back. So it is perfect because it does lift the cork, lifts it off your mat just a little bit, enough that you can use it for making a straight line when you're cutting your mesh, okay? So these are the tools I use for good wood burning techniques. I also have 2 packages of rectangle boards I use because when you're wood burning your mesh, the best way to use your mesh, especially if you're making a flower, more than likely if you're wood burning your mesh, you're probably making a flower. And to make a flower petal, the best way is to have your mesh nice and flat. Okay, like I have here. See how flat it is? It's not all curved up. And the way I do that is when I'm finished cutting my mesh and it's all rolled up, so you know when you're finished cutting your mesh, it's usually rolled up like this, right? What I do is I'll take my pieces of mesh. Let's use the blue so you guys can see. Okay. And I pile it so once it's all rolled like this, right? Okay, so I'll make it, I pile it on itself. So let's put 1 piece. I take 1 package of the rectangle boards, and then I pile, move the rectangle board, put it on. Pile, put it on. Now it's easier right now because it's not curling up because I already have it flattened. But you get the gist, all right? And then once you have all your mesh in a pile like this, I can see you, Jackie. I take another board, set of rectangle boards, and I put it on the top. And then I leave it like this overnight, okay? When I get up in the morning, my mesh is nice and flat and ready to use to make some beautiful petals. All right, so that's just a little hint on how I keep my mesh flat. Okay, so let's start off with the poly burlap. Okay, so poly burlap, when you hear you want to keep between the lines, it is poly burlap that most people are referring to keep between the lines, which means when you're wood burning, which I'll just show you. So the first thing you want to do, if you're opening a fresh roll, okay, you want to square off your the end of your mesh. Well, Dave must be home. So what you're going to do is unroll your mesh, and you're going to make sure that your bottom seam here is lined up with one of your lines on your cutting board or your glass cutting mat. All right, and then you're going to take your wood burner. Now this wood burner, this one I believe is walnut hollow. It's just the inexpensive one. That's it. And it's the tip that comes on with it. And before I use it, I always make sure that the tip is on tight. Okay, so always check. Now this is hot, so that's why I'm using the pliers. Please, 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 in God's name, do not touch the end of this because it will hurt. So just make sure it's tightened. You can do that before you even turn it on. This one, there is no temperature control. It's just on off, which is fine because I don't use, I've had a couple of the temperature control ones. I never use them. I always have it at full blast anyways. Okay, so I'm rolling this out. Now, I'm just going to clean up the edge here. What you're going to do is this tip is angled. All right, so you want the tip of it at the top. And you're going to use it like a pen, okay? And when you're cutting it, just for poly burlap, you're going to go in between the two lines. Even if it's all askew and wonky or whatever, stay in between that line, the line, okay? Like that. Even if it curves or whatever. Because in the end, it ends up being a perfect 10 by 10. I don't know why, but it does. And it's only poly burlap that you really should do this with, okay? I'm making you nervous. So once I've cleaned up the edge, I'm now going to put the end of it, the edge of my mesh, in my clips. So now I don't have to hold onto my mesh at the end, or you can just put something heavy. I just find the clips work because it'll keep it squared on your cutting board, okay? Don't be nervous. I am professional. I promise, I am professional. Okay, so we have it right at the edge on our cutting board. I have it lined up. The factory edge is lined up, squared right at the bottom. And I can see my marker line of the 10-inch right here. So I am going to find the closest. Oh, hi David A. Franklin. Hi. The closest two vertical lines to the 10-inch. And I'm going to go between those two lines. All right, so there, right here is the closest to my 10-inch, and I'm going to just cut in between those two lines. And that will give you a perfect 10 by 10 piece wood burned. Okay? We'll do that again. So I'm pulling, just pull it out. Press your clip. Put the top in. Put the bottom in. Make sure we're squared. So just move your roll of mesh to square it up. All right. And again, find out where your closest two lines is to the 10-inch and follow the cutting right between those two. Just like that. Okay? Even if it's squirrely, that's how you're going to cut it. And that is how you're going to get your perfect 10 by 10 piece. All right, so once you've done wood burning quite a bit, you get really fast at it. So, but it really does help when you have little tips and tricks like this. It really helps with, speeding along the process of wood burning your mesh. Now that's poly burlap. Now poly burlap, pretty much I think anytime you use poly burlap, unless you're doing poofs, you need to wood burn poly burlap. It will fray like nobody's business, okay? You sneeze on it, it will start having the strings. So make sure you wood burn your poly burlap. And like I said, it's not hard. Just use your make sure you have, you know, good precautions, you know, a good airflow in your room, or you're doing it outside, or you're wearing a mask or something, okay? Your dog's looking for them. Dave just came home and let them out. All right, so let's move on to a deluxe foil. So this mesh has a lot of foil in it. But don't be scared of the foil, because the only thing that you cannot wood burn, what mesh you cannot wood burn, is a actual real jute. Now, fabric mesh is not real jute, okay? I know it does say a lot of times the description will say jute mesh. It's really hard to decipher when you're just a customer, but there is very, very little chance that I will buy any mesh that has jute in it. Saying that, it's also called cotton. What is it? Cotton strand or something. That too cannot be wood burned. Just anything that's mostly plastic or have metallic. Okay. So again, I am going to clean the edge of my mesh here. So I'm just kind of squaring it just like this. And it doesn't really matter what line I'm following. I'm just going to follow. Oh, is this still on? Oh shoot, I shut it off for some reason. I'm just going to square this up. Now, this is where we're not going to be going in between lines. Now, you can kind of with the deluxe foil if you want. I just use one of the metal rulers for anything else other than poly burlap. Horizontal wide stripe you can use between the lines too, but the thing I find with horizontal wide stripe is sometimes it's really wonky. I don't know if it's the type of mesh or the process of rolling it up and stuff, but sometimes it comes out super wonky and then you really can't follow the lines. So that's where the ruler comes in handy. So you're going to, again, square up your mesh, and I'm just cleaning the edge up here. So I'm just going to use my ruler and follow my ruler with my black line that is on my glass cutting mat. Okay. Hold it down. Take your wood burner. I don't know if it's hot enough yet. And just go along your ruler, your metal ruler. Now, you won't want to do this on a wood ruler unless the wood ruler has that piece of metal. Sometimes you can get the wood ruler and it has that metal in it. That will work too, but a plastic ruler or just a plain wood ruler, I wouldn't, because it'll start on fire. Okay, so I've cleaned up the edge. Again, we're going to flip this around. Now, we're going to measure this because when you want to make a perfect square, you want to check to see what the length is, or the width is. This one is actually 10.5. So to make a perfect square, we're going to have to cut this roll at 10.5. I've been telling people lately to always measure your mesh. Don't go by what is said on the mesh, because I'm finding that it's not correct. So if you're going to cut a whole roll of mesh at 10 inches because it says it's 10 inches and you're making, say, a Dean Michael petal where you need a perfect square, you're going to cut that whole roll of mesh and going to be really upset because you come to find out that it's actually 10.5, not 10. So err on the side of caution. Before you even do anything, just throw your roll onto your cutting mat or whatever and just see what the actual width of it is. So this is a 10.5 inch roll, okay? 10.5 inch. I'm not sure what it says on the package, but I'm going to cut this mesh 10.5 by 10.5. because I want a perfect square. So I'm going to push my clip up, slide that in, push, slide that in. We make sure it's all squared. Now the orange on my glass cutting mat, the orange line, I know is 10.5. All right, so I'm going to put my ruler, make sure everything's squared, put my ruler down the orange line, which is 10.5, and then I'm just going to take my wood burner, okay, use it at like a 45-degree angle and hold it like a pen. Okay, so if you're using it at a 45-degree angle, you're not just cutting it with the tip. Okay, and we're going to hold it like that and just slowly go down your ruler, and once it's heated up, it cuts it like butter. And we have a very nice 10.5 by 10.5 piece. Yeah, this was definitely 10.5. So you can measure before you cut the rest of your roll. Your first piece, make sure you measure. So it's 10.5 this way and 10.5 this way. So the rest of the roll can be cut just like that. So make sure you measure. Measure twice, cut once. Or measure 3 times, cut once. What's the saying? So you can see how easy it cut through all that metallic. No problem. Do one more. So we're all squared up and 45-degree angle. All right, like that. Hold it like a pen, and there you go. Okay, so that is deluxe foil. It's, you know, 3/4 of it is the aluminum foil or the metallic foil in there. You can see it cuts no problem. So let's move on to horizontal wide stripe. I know this packaging says 10 inches, but when you measure it, it's definitely 10.5. So I'm going to cut this piece at 10.5 by 10.5. Now, you can, like I said, this mesh is fairly new to the market, and you can do it like a poly burlap, going, you know, in between the lines. However, like I said, it kind of comes, sometimes the roll is a little bit wonky. So I'm going to just clean this up first. So I am going just between the line here. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to, again, clip it. We are making a flower today, so don't worry. Okay. Now, like I said, I measured it. It was 10.5. This one isn't too wonky like some of them I've had. But with my horizontal wide stripe, I just use a ruler, my friends. I don't bother going in between the lines. It's just much easier for me to use my ruler. So I'm just going to put my ruler at the 10.5. It's more important to make sure that your sizing, especially if you're making a Dean Michael petal, is on point. All right, and then I'm just going right down. Again, 45-degree angle. I'm going to measure, make sure it's a square before I cut the rest of the mesh. So that is 10.5. That is 10.5. So I can continue on with 10.5 for sure. Okay, so it's up to you. Have a look at your roll, see if it's wonky or not. Rule of thumb for me for horizontal wide stripe, I just use the ruler. Okay, the only one, like I said, the only one I will ever go between the lines for is the poly burlap. And then let's try this new mesh. This new mesh is a extra large wide foil stripe mesh. Okay, even though this says that it's 10.5, I'm still going to measure it. And it's actually a little over 10.5. Yeah, it's about 10.5. Yeah, 10.5 will be good. I'm going to clean up the edge. So I'm just kind of squaring it up here. Clean up the edge. So I'm just going down and following one of these lines. Now the middle of this mesh is like a value mesh with metallic. The outer part is actual metallic strip. It cuts, as you can see, it cuts no problem. And with this one, you may want to wood burn it because wood burning will almost put a stopper on these big extra large foils slipping out of your mesh. Okay, I know I've seen a few people having an issue with it slipping out of the mesh and coming out. If you're worried about that, wood burn it. Okay, it does make a stopper and prevent that, and it prevents this middle part as well, which is more of a value mesh from fraying either. And then again, we're just going to put it in our clips. All right, I'm going to take my ruler because these lines are really wonky, plus they're really, really tight knit, so you're not going to be able to go between the lines on this one. So that's again where your ruler is going to come in nice and handy. And I'm putting it on my orange line, which is my 10.5. So you can see why I emphasize 10 and 10.5, because when you put your mesh on, sometimes you can't see your numbers. So I don't even look for the numbers. All I do is look for my color. Like I said, my black is 10, my orange is 10.5, and I know that. So I'm just going to run my ruler along the orange, and I'm pressing down on my ruler so my mesh does not move. We're using a 45-degree angle like a pen, and at a nice pace, because you don't want to stop because it'll burn. There you go. You have a nice clean cut 10.5 by 10.5 inch piece. Let's measure 10.5. It's a little bit over 10.5, but there we go. Two edges nice and clean. Okay, and then fabric mesh. Oh, I thought I brought a fabric mesh out. Hold on. I'll just grab one. I have one right here. Fabric mesh. You want to clean up your edge. Definitely measure your fabric mesh. It normally is 10.5, but just double check. It's 10.5. Now this is where sometimes the description has the word jute in it. It's not actual like burlap jute, so it does wood burn. I don't know what it. I'm assuming it's fabric, some kind of fabric twined in here, because it does wood burn perfectly. So I don't know what it's made in here, but it does wood burn. So again, I'm just going to put my ruler on my orange line. I have it squared up at the bottom here. All right, 45-degree angle. Just slowly go along your ruler. And voila. You have now wood burned fabric mesh. Okay, so if those are just a few little tips I've learned along the way of the actual wood burning of mesh. Just little tricks that help the process speed along here. My mat is 16 by 12, this one. So I usually never go over, past 10 and a half. This mesh cut really nice. I love this mesh. Now this one is sold out, this color. It sold out when I did the scarecrow, but it wood burns beautifully as well. It's got a lot of foil in it, but like I showed you, wood burning foil mesh is not an issue. I hope that helped with wood burning. Little tips and tricks. And as you do more, you get really fast. Like I think I can do wood burn a whole roll of mesh within like 2 minutes. So it's pretty easy. So let's make a flower because it's Flower Friday. Now this is a soldering iron holder. It's all metal. I just bought it off. Oh, fancy you asked that. I got it off Amazon. However, I can't remember who it was, somebody said they just use a coffee cup. They just literally throw their wood burner into a coffee cup. I would think that would work because it's made for hot stuff. So you could try a coffee cup, but this stand, I don't even know how much it was. I use it all the time. The wood burner does come with this little dinky, like, stand. I don't know how you're supposed, there we go. Like that. And this curvature that's on this little stand, it goes like this. So you can use the stand it comes with. Just be careful. As you can see, it slides. It will fold. Just be careful when you're using this one because it's not super dependable. And always don't just shut your wood burner off, unplug it as well. If you're, I'm a little bit of a freak when it comes to that stuff. I don't want my house burning down, so I always unplug my wood burner. I don't just shut it off. Okay. At least when you unplug it, you'll remember the unplugging of it, because there's many times in bed I'll be laying, like before I used to unplug everything. Same with my glue gun. I always unplug that too. I'll be laying in bed. It's like, oh God, did I turn it off? And then I'll remember the thing of pulling when you're just flicking it off, you may not remember that you flicked it off. However, you will remember pretty much if you unplugged it. So just my